Who've done it. Stay tuned with us on Austin Faith Dialogue.
This is Austin Faith Dialogue, a public affairs program discussing the important crossroad of religion in life, produced by Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KTBC TV. Austin Faith Dialogue highlights the interaction of the religious community with the social and cultural issues throughout our area. Now, today's edition of Austin Faith Dialogue.
Hello, I'm Richard Thompson of Austin Metropolitan Ministries, welcoming you to this edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. It's a mystery today that we are dealing with, in fact, two mysteries. One entitled The Saints of God Murders, and then another one entitled Blessed Are the Merciless. It's murder he wrote, in this case Chuck Meyer, who is the Director of Pastoral Care at St. David's Hospital. And Chuck, we are welcoming you today, not so much as your chaplaincy duties, but as this writer of detective fiction. I think that clarify the mystery quickly as to what this is and how this is for us.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me here today, and it's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you.
The two books really grew out of my fascination with mystery, the whole mystery genre, which, as you know, I think is parallel to the gospel. But I've always liked mysteries from childhood, reading the Hardy Boys and other, of course, Conan Doyle, and I've always kind of wanted to emulate that tradition. And so actually was walking out of a movie theater about 15 years ago and disappointed that I'd figured this out in the first 5 minutes and saying, you know, I think it's possible to do better than that. So went home that night and started writing, and I've been writing mysteries ever since. Saints of God was actually written about 10 years ago, and it's taken that long to find both an agent and a publisher and do appropriate editing for it to bring it up to speed to compete in the marketplace.
And then the Blessed Are the Merciless has been done more recently.
More recently, yeah. It was actually done about a year and a half ago, and that's the second book of a two-book contract with Berkeley.
Well, you've enjoyed it, it sounds like.
It's fun. It's great fun. It's play. Not work, it's play.
And, I mean, during the daytime, you're doing this work at St. David's.
That's right.
Your pastoral care and all of that.
Right.
And then at night you go home and write these mysteries.
Is this write mysteries,
a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde sort of thing that we're talking about?
No, I think it's the same thing. I think there's no difference in what I do during the day and what I do at night. It's all the gospel. Both being with people in the midst of crisis, helping them through what most people would think of as unmanageable events, dealing with death, dealing with life, dealing with end-of-life treatment decisions, withdrawal of treatment decisions, all the death and dying stuff. And just sort of being with people through that is for me, is witness of God's presence with us. And that's what God does with us, is be present with us through all the events of our lives. What Lucas Holt and the God Squad do in the two mysteries, and hopefully more to come, are to be with people in the major events of their lives. These major events happen to be murders or mysteries.
Well, I think that it'd be helpful for viewers who may not have read your book to have you define the God Squad.
Well, Lucas Holt is the rector of St. Margaret's Episcopal Church at the corner of 7th and San Jacinto in Austin, Texas. Affectionately known as Maggie Mays. And Lucas used to be a prison chaplain at Huntsville for 20 years.
The Dallas Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl, and Fox 7 Sports will be there to cover all the action. I'm Dave Cody. Join me for a full week of reports from Tempe, Arizona, beginning Sunday night at 10. Fox 7 News has the coverage you can count on. The team, the players, and the people that make the Super Bowl special. You followed the Cowboys on Fox 7 from training camp to NFC champions. Now stay with Fox 7 Sports for Super Bowl coverage that's a cut above the rest. Beginning Sunday night at 10 on Fox 7 News. News you can count on.
The explosive. The exotic. The exceptional.
In my dream.
I remember seeing a white light.
This is a miracle. Strange.
The exciting. The extraordinary.
Sunday afternoon at 1 on Fox 7. You
Actually assigned to St. Margaret's by a bishop who actually wasn't too fond of his theology and sort of hoped he would fail. And so he went to St. Margaret's and found them totally bankrupt due to a whole bunch of things that had
Nefarious
happened.
activities.
Nefarious activities.
Right.
That's in addition to which, people from his congregation start ending up dead. So he is then aided and assisted by a group of ex-cons who used to be known in the prison as the God Squad, who sort of looked out after him and he looked out after them. Well, they have now all gotten out of prison and have gravitated to Austin to still be around him, and they actually solved the murders.
Okay, now let's make a little bit of a transition from fiction to fact here. It is a fact that you were also a chaplain in a prison before coming to Austin.
An amazing coincidence, yes.
And did you have a God Squad in your work?
There was a group of inmates that were called by the guards, the God Squad, who supported the chaplaincy would be a little too strong, but they were certainly involved in it in a lot of ways. And they would put on the Christmas service at the penitentiary and sort of looked out after each other and watched our backs and took care of each other, got me into trouble and them into trouble, and both of us in and out of trouble on various occasions.
Yeah. Well, I read the first of the books, and it seemed to me that you were writing out of actual experience of having a rapport with certain of these folks that you'd been in prison working with, and that you had a real affection and understanding that I think maybe is not, from the public perception, realize just how much community may be there behind the walls.
It really is a separate community behind the walls, and I think Lucas and the boys bring that out.
And then they come out into the world, and they enact this community in a world that is suspicious of that.
Yes, especially Susan Granger, who's the Austin Police Department lieutenant, with whom Lucas has both a history and a past, when they were both students at the University of Texas. And she consistently resents their meddling in her police business.
Well, I don't want to give away, you know, the secret to any of this, but I think it's well for the public to know that what you're doing is not that new, in a sense, of relating church life and detective fiction. And some of the people that I know, G.K. Chesterton was one of the early ones to write a story about Father Brown, who was a sleuth as well as being a priest. And Rabbi Small, I believe was his name, and having to do with another series of crime fiction. Is it your hope to become the Protestant counterpart to these folks?
That would be wonderful. Yeah, there's a place for a Protestant, I think, in the mystery genre. Why not? Why should the rabbis and Catholic priests have all the fun?
Right. Well, what is there about mystery, about the whole way of writing and getting people into that mindset that makes it so close to the gospel?
See, I think that's why people like it. I think because there is a tremendous, there are two parallel things going on here. One is there's a tremendous mystery market in this country. People love mysteries. And the mystery market, actually, the numbers of books in the market and numbers of sales have really burgeoned in the last few years. I really believe that's parallel to tremendous spiritual hunger currently in our culture that, in my experience and perception and talking to other people, has not been entirely addressed by the traditional venues, parish churches, other literature. And so we see in the mystery genre yet another incarnation of the gospel, because the mystery follows the same storyline as the gospel. If you look at the way the Bible starts out, everything's kind of cooking along just fine and dandy. God creates and it's good, and things are fine, and then boom, something happens to create chaos out of what was God has pronounced as good. So chaos is created, and something bad happens. And then a mystery, things are out of place. And so the hero comes in, the Christ figure, or the detective, or the Jesus person, or it could be the prophet in the Old Testament. And they come in, they start putting the puzzle pieces together and redeem this. And so that by the time you get to the end of the mystery novel, chaos has been addressed, and the puzzle pieces are back in order. Order has been restored. Good wins out over evil. And you're back on even keel until the sequel comes out.
And then you go through it again.
Back at it again. And I think that's the general flow of our lives. I think that's why people find this so attractive, is that's what we do here. Things cook along for a while, something bad happens. We figure out a way to put it back together. A death and resurrection occurs, and then death and resurrection occurs, and then what happens next? Death and resurrection occurs. That's what we do here, and that's kind of the cycle of our lives. And I think that's why people find mysteries so attractive.
Yeah. Well, I think that what you're talking about almost is like a little sermon, okay? And we're used to hearing sermons about, you know, difficult times and the recovery and so on. But we're not necessarily used to hearing about, you know, All Saints murders. I mean, you've got it in this genre, which is still, it kind of jolts us to think that, you know, parishioners are getting, not just dying off by the course of nature, but getting bumped off.
They certainly are.
I have never read or seen anything where so many parishioners are getting bumped off in a place. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
actually,
Maggie Mays, it's a mayhem.
It makes you wonder if you want to belong there, you know. A friend of mine at work actually called me last week and said, you know, the statistics for murder in Austin last year were something like 38 murders were committed. He said, if I read your books right, half of them were committed in Maggie Mays. And he said, I think I'm going to maintain my Baptist membership.
Certainly don't want to get in the Episcopal Church.
No, sir, no.
Yeah. Well, what kind of a response are you getting here in Austin? I mean,
actually, very good response. People warm to it. They like the Austin references. There are a lot of references to Austin places. People actually have walked into St. David's Church, which for some people, for some strange reason, people think is correlated with Maggie May.
Hey, just because it's
the same corner.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I don't get that at all. People have walked in, strangers have walked in saying, could we see the treasury? Because there's a treasury, as you know, mentioned in the basement of the church, which I'll leave to your viewers to wonder whether it exists or not. It may be good for business down there. I don't know.
Well, you certainly piqued their interest, I'd say. But
yes, hopefully.
And I think that I can remember one of the first songs that I associated with the Episcopal Church was the Saints
of God.
They were all of them saints of God, and I mean
God willing to be one
too. And one was a doctor, and
one was a priest, and one was killed by a fierce wild beast. One was a soldier, one was a queen, one was a shepherdess on the green. They were all of them saints of God, and I mean God willing to be one.
So each of the people that meets this ill-fated end in your story,
they're in the hymn,
fits that hymn pattern.
That's right.
And that's where you get the. How did that happen to come to you as an organizing concept?
I've always liked that hymn also. It's been sort of paradigmatic of the Episcopal Church. It's actually a hymn for children in the children's section, so I've sung it for years and years, being a cradle Episcopalian. And I've always liked it and thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting if each of these people woke up dead? And then you'd have to figure out why and who did it and to what end.
And you come down to the end of the story, and it has to do with the priest.
The priest.
Oh, surprise ending.
Surprise ending.
Ah, yes. Fitting in the city where O. Henry wrote. I mean, you've
That's
got
right.
a little bit of a parallel there.
Twist there at the end.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a little break here, and then we'll be right back with you folks as we consider, continue to consider the matter of mystery in the gospel. Stay with us.
Serving Austin means serving you. That has always been the primary goal of Austin Metropolitan Ministries. We are religion in action through the work of these organizations. Each plays a key role in making the capital city a better place to live, but we can't do it alone. Do you have some spare time, talents, or any resources that you can share? If you do, please call AMM at 472-7627, because serving Austin means serving you.
Welcome back to Austin Faith Dialogue, where today we are focusing upon the mystery and the gospel, and in terms of two mysteries that have recently come before the public, one being called the Saints of God Murders, the other being called Blessed Are the Merciless, and the author of both of these, Chuck Meyer, who is the Pastoral Care Director of St. David's Hospital. Chuck, I read the blurb on Blessed Are the Merciless, and it has to do with apparently, again, these parishioners who getting killed in this particular church, and they all have in common that they've got relatives in nursing homes.
Elderly relatives in nursing homes that they have not actually treated very well either.
They're not visiting, they're ignoring, and...
Ignoring, right, sort of dumped them off in there.
Okay.
And all of a sudden these people in their 40s end up dead, and lo and behold, who's getting the insurance money? The elderly people in the nursing homes.
I see.
Very strange occurrence.
I see. Well, it seems to sound like a poetic justice for as far as people who ignore their relatives. Is there a little sermon in that too?
Actually, there's no sermon material in either novel, other than the sort of hints about maybe the way we ought to treat people and the way we'd like to be treated and who God is and how we relate to that as community. Again, not the sort of direct hits, but Lucas does philosophize about life. He's going through a midlife crisis in this second book.
Lucas Holt,
Lucas
the
Holt,
pastor,
rector at Maggie Mays. He's doing a number of things. He's kind of doing some life review, wondering about aging, a lot of aging issues in the book. Actually, I've gotten really good feedback from people in retirement centers saying, yeah, I like this. This is good.
Right. Serves them right.
Serves them right. Yeah, those kids were bad. They're out of here. So dealing with aging issues and kind of the aging of his congregation, his own aging, and for the runners in the Austin area, he's training for the Austin Marathon. So a lot of scenes around Town Lake, and reflecting on that as he and the God Squad go about tracking down the people responsible for the murders.
Well, he is then kind of reflective. Lucas Holt is not simply being modeled after Sherlock Holmes per se, but kind of like any of us in that regard.
Yeah, he is the sort of the every clergy who thinks about things and reflects on them, and his goal is not simply to solve the murders, but to wonder how does this happen and who are we that these occur. One of the things I learned at the penitentiary was that all of us are capable of anything. And if we think that we're not, we deceive ourselves. I think that's the gospel as well. And that there is forgiveness, and there is mercy, and there is life after life after life after whatever.
I had one place in the book, this first book that you wrote that I read about, that I can't remember exactly the quote, but it reminded me of Hitchcock, Alfred Hitchcock, whose programs were about good people, I mean apparently good people, pure people, who were just evil as they could be inside, and but they sold themselves to the world. I mean, they were Satan dressed as an angel of light sort of thing. And I get got the quote and I got the way you played that out in certain...
Well, I think that's true. As I mentioned to you, there are some people looking at doing a TV series based on the characters, and the tentative working title is Sinners and Saints, because in the books it's often difficult to tell who's who. And I think in real life it's difficult to tell who's who, and what worries me is that some groups are too clear about that and want to be real judgmental about who the sinners are and who the saints are, which is presumptuous at least and sinful at worst.
So one of the subtexts of what you're saying is don't judge by appearances.
Right. That we really cannot judge by appearances and err grievously when we do. Because in mystery, in the whole mystery genre, as in the gospel, those who may initially stereotypically look the worst turned out to be the ones who are redeeming. Not always. Don't be too fooled.
You've got Max, the secretary.
That's right.
You might say a little bit about this character.
Maxine Blackwell is the Rev's secretary. She was his inmate secretary when he was at Huntsville. And she is a former madam from Austin of a house of ill repute. And part of the deal was, when he took the job, that she came with him, much to the chagrin of several parishioners, but many of them couldn't comment on it because they had had business dealings with her earlier.
I see. Okay. Had to be careful how...
That's right.
Judgmental they
How
became.
judgmental you get about anybody.
Right. You also have been, it's been noted that you have some steamy scenes in these novels.
Just like the gospel.
Okay. Just like in the Bible?
Just like in the Bible. There are steamy scenes.
Yeah.
Parallels to steamy scenes.
Yeah. Have you
part
had,
of who we are. We're steamy people.
Haven't you had people say, that's very refreshing to see a clergyman writing about that kind of thing?
Yeah,
in an
really
X-rated society.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are not X-rated books. They're probably PG-13.
Yeah. Well, enough to give you the idea that this is the way life is.
That's part of who we are. Part of who we are is steamy people. And God's steamy people. That's a good phrase. May use that.
Good. All right. Well, it was originated here on this program.
Right here with you. You heard it first. So why not?
Well, I don't want to be too commercial about this, but where can people find your book?
All over town. Bookstop carries it, Barnes & Noble, Borders, St. David's Hospital, of course, carries it. They've probably sold more than anybody, I think. Northwest Hills Pharmacy, actually, has been they've repeat orders up there, good folks up there, so it's possible to get it there, too.
So just virtually any bookstore in town?
Yeah, any bookstore in town carries it.
And what about outside Austin? Is it being carried?
Yeah, again, the major chains carry it all over the country. Barnes & Noble, B. Dalton, all the Borders, all of them.
I know you've also written some other books. Tell us about those.
Some of the others are God's Laughter and Other Heresies, a collection of kind of short reads that I've done over the years. The Gospel According to Bubba. Bubba, as you know, is a Texas angel that appears to me and tells me how things were in the Old and New Testament. That one's actually being looked at by HarperCollins. They're thinking about mass marketing that one. So Bubba may actually hit the national marketplace here and make Austin famous. Who knows? Another one called Fast, Funny, and 40, kind of reflections of life through bifocals, and Surviving Death, which we did a program on a number of years ago.
Right. I think I was one of the programs that we received some of our most appreciative response on of
It was fun.
The Surviving Death referring to the living. Yeah. And the fact that what I see in common between those earlier works and these latter-day ones is that this is about death, too.
Right. And life, and how to live, how we live together, what our values are, what it is that we believe, how God continues to push out of the God box that we keep trying to put God into. Every time we think we've got God in the box, God shows up over here somewhere saying, thought I was there, didn't you? And constantly surprising us. Remember the women that went to the tomb were surprised by joy. God constantly is surprising us with mercy and redemption and the new ways of being God. You know,
I want to draw one other parallel about writers today, Tony Hillerman probably being the best known, or one of the best selling certainly, of the writers of detective fiction, and how he has this point of view, even though it's not religious per se, but in terms of Native American faith and practice, that in that setting, in that view of the universe, that things are out of balance. And that the detectives there keep talking, they hold on to their intuition, and they don't let go, because they're convinced that there is a purpose behind everything. And until that is ferreted out, and do you share that same sense of living in a universe that supports the purpose?
Right. Well, that's also the kind of Star Wars theology. You know, may the Force be with you. The Force is moving in a particular direction for a particular end, and there are dark sides to the Force as well. And we need to deal with both of those as we figure out who we are and who God is interacting with us. Another thing about Hillerman and myself, some of the other writers, is that I think we appeal not just to, quote-unquote, the churched, but there is a tremendous spiritual need out there from people who have no contact with church, clergy, religious establishments at all. And I think the fact that, as I said, these books are relatively popular says that it addresses those spiritual needs in ways that maybe the traditional church theology can't do.
Have you had non-religious people say, that helped me?
Yes, sure have.
I mean, what have they said?
Well, just that they, some of the way things were worked out, or the characters in the book, really helped them to see their particular perspective on religion that they would probably not have gotten in a traditional church. And I think I really think we're in a spiritual revolution here in the next 10, 15 years. Spirituality is breaking out in other places other than the traditional religious establishments.
Well, besides the traditional establishments and detective fiction, where else is it breaking out?
Well, there's a sort of interest in New Age theology. There are little groups. Michael Ventura, who writes for the Chronicle and also for LA Magazine, actually spends part-time in Austin, writes about traveling across the country and running into small groups of people who have sort of come together for allegedly secular reasons, support, or maybe even a book group, that end up becoming little communities. And community is what spirituality is about, as we know. So there's that stuff going on, and outside, as I said, kind of the traditional God box.
Yeah. We've had Keith Miller on this show a couple of times, and of course what he's making known to the public is how the 12-step group represents what he believes is the greatest revolution in the life of faith since the Reformation. And that fits in terms of the community side of it as well. Chuck, we're just about out of time, but I want to thank you for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you very much.
I have to say that we kind of set the public up. We said, who done it? We're going to let them know, and we haven't told them.
That's why it's a mystery.
Right. And if they want to find out, of course, they can...
They can find out in these two books.
All right. Well, we want to let everyone know the Saints of God Murders and Blessed Are the Merciless are available around town, virtually any bookstore, and enjoy that as we move into the new year. And we're grateful for your looking in on our conversation today, and the peace of the Lord be with you.
For more information, call Austin Metropolitan Ministries at